All right, welcome to the Nathaneal Podcast. Today we have Lachlan Stuart. I hope I didn't butcher that name.
Nailed it. No, it's perfect.
Awesome. So, to anyone who's not familiar with your brand, would you mind introducing yourself, Lachlan?
Sure thing, Nathaniel, and thanks for having me on as well and not butchering my name. Commonly I get Lachlan or Lachey or a whole different array of names, but essentially I'm an athlete. I'm a business owner, husband, son, and just someone who is trying to live the best life possible. And currently what that looks like for me is building my business while traveling, supporting my wife. So we're living over in America at the moment, originally from Australia, if the accent doesn't give it away. And it's something that's been a 10-year build to be able to get to this point. In 2014 was when I first made the commitment to myself that I wanted to be able to work from where I want, when I want, with who I want, and really have full, ownership for my income. And that has been the 10-year journey that's led me to being in this position today. And I guess from a business standpoint, my business has gone through plenty of evolutions, as I have as well, as I'm constantly, testing things to find out what I enjoy. And then, you get feedback from that and you sort of modify and pivot as you go.
Wow, 10 years. I can't wait to dive right into it. But one thing I did see, I looked at your LinkedIn profile and you were a rugby player before.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
So growing up, I always played sports. I was very fortunate that my parents just let me try everything. So I was, skateboarding, surfing, cross country, athletics, rugby, soccer, anything, tennis, anything that I could get my hands on, I would give a crack. And the beauty about that was it put me in a position to be able to pick skills and sports up relatively easy. And I'd never played rugby until I was 12 years old, and I went to a rugby school. I got a running scholarship to go to the school, and one of the things I found out pretty quickly was that the cool kids play rugby, the not so cool kids are runners, and I wanted to be the cool kid and fit in. And so that's when I I committed to playing rugby and really going all in on that. And I guess from that moment, when you make that commitment, you start hanging in that environment, you want to be the best, or I wanted to be the best. And what that looked like was playing professionally. That was the goal. Everything that I did was to play professional rugby. And I was very fortunate that I got to achieve that, not with a number of setbacks. And I played rugby league and then rugby union as well. So professionally, I played rugby union. I lived over in France for a season and a half, which was an incredible experience to be able to, live out that dream and also prove to myself that I could do the thing that I put my mind to. And, I learned a whole heap of stuff off the back of that. And finishing up relatively young, I retired at 23, sent me on the next journey.
Gotcha. And if you don't mind me asking, what stopped you from continuing that career?
There was, what it really boiled down to was, one, I didn't really love it. I did it because it was sort of cool in the beginning, and then I wanted to be the best at it. I'd never really questioned why I wanted to be the best. I just always, was seeking.
It's competitive, like the competitive spirit. Yeah.
Competitive and validation. But then I also had a lot of underlying issues. The reason why I moved away from Australia was I'd been lying, cheating, manipulating, getting in a bit of trouble, and I was looking for a fresh start, and I wanted to prove to people that I could do it. So I always had this chip on my shoulder, and that's what drove me. But when I moved over there and I was, doing the thing that I wanted to be doing, I realized, one, that it didn't, remove my jealousy or my insecurities. I was still, after about 3 months, the first 3 months, Nathaneal, were amazing. Like I loved it. That was awesome. But after a while, I was training full time, sitting at home. I couldn't speak French, so sitting in my apartment, and the same insecurities and problems started to rear their head. And eventually that's what finished my time there. And I went home. I booked a return flight to go back to Australia for Christmas. And when I went home just before Christmas, I decided I didn't want to go back. I got back to, the town that I grew up in. Everyone was so excited to see me. It was like I was this I felt very validated and important again because I'd
Yeah.
been living abroad doing this thing, and I was like, I'm not going back. I love this way too much.
Yeah.
And same with everything, like the shine wears off eventually. So after, deciding I wasn't going back, a couple of weeks after that, people went back to work, and all of a sudden no one really cared what I was doing. And then I found myself in that position where I was like, what do I,
What am
what
I
do I
doing?
do now? Yeah. So I learned a lot from those experiences.
Gotcha. That's a funny story. So how did you so what was the turning point for you to go to business? Like what happened? Because I did see as well that you were a fitness coach for quite some time.
Yeah. So I guess after that, I'd put all chips into wanting to be a professional athlete. So I think most people face three options, or I faced three options finishing school. It was either be a professional athlete or a musician. I was never going to be a musician. Go to university. I wasn't interested in it. There wasn't anything that
Mm.
jumped out at me, and I wasn't the best at school. Or go get a trade. So builder, mechanic, something like that. And at
Mm.
the time, I believed that was for people who couldn't do or get real jobs. And I'm very fortunate, and that belief's obviously changed, but that was where I was at that point in time because I was so focused on making money and so focused on being successful. So when I realized that the sport was now off the table, I
Mm.
didn't want to get a trade. I was like, okay, well, maybe I can do sports science or something at university. Like I love sport, maybe that'll work. And I went in and out of university twice, hated it. And then eventually all that was left, I needed to pay bills. So my dad is a carpenter or a builder, and he had his own business. So I was just working as a laborer for him. And I was like driving back from a job one day, and I was just and I was so confused, and I hated not being able to tell people I was working towards something. So I just said to dad, I want to do my apprenticeship. Like I want to learn to be a builder. And then my long-term goal is I'll own my own building company and I'll make money. Once again, coming back to money. And so I
Yeah.
did my apprenticeship. I fast tracked through it, and I didn't like it at all. I just the culture of that working environment didn't suit me. The hours, the work was quite fun, but yeah, there was a lot of things that I didn't like. So I was like, I can't do this anymore. And it was around that
Mm.
time that I met my wife, and my wife
Mm.
showed me, because she was a musician, and she showed me that like if you really want to pursue something, regardless of the chances of success, you just got to go all in.
Yeah.
And my idea at that point was like, well, I love sport. I want
Mm.
to live a good lifestyle, and I want to earn money. I didn't know
Mm.
what that looked like at that point in time, but that's what I knew I wanted. And so
Mm.
then the next best thing was going into personal training. And so one thing I forgot was I did my certification for personal training when I was playing rugby. Mum was like, you should probably do that in case it doesn't work out. And same thing, I thought personal trainers were people who couldn't get real jobs. That was I guess, that mindset that I had at the time. Anyway, so I was fortunate to then transition into personal training and started building my brand, and realized that one, you can earn great money. It's a really good lifestyle business, but the way that you generate money is not so much in, I guess, the service that you offer, but what you can build and the value that you can create. And it doesn't matter. I guess leverage. Let's use leverage. I realized that you could create leverage through building a brand, through doing 3-on-1 or building workshops, etc. And that's what I eventually went down the path of doing.
Gotcha. So you went from rugby player to like trying to, but like to go to trade with your father's
Yeah. So
business,
yeah,
and then like personal trainer.
yeah.
Is that
And
right?
look, yes, but to be between the building and the personal training, I did network marketing, I did door-to-door
Mm.
sales, I did Uber driving, I did my
Ah.
baristas. Like I did multiple things,
So the
and
odd
that was
jobs, the odd jobs.
yeah
You went
to
through
get
that.
by. Yep, yep.
Gotcha. Wow, that's like a man's. I don't know, because that also was what happened to me. Although mine, because I also didn't know what I want to do, so I really resonate with what you were talking about. Like I was in it for the competition, like even school. So I didn't have like a sports background. I was a fat kid. I had a lot of insecurities, but I was smart. So kind of like the opposite of you, I guess. So I was smart. So I did like do school as a competition, not really to be like, nothing noble. I just wanted to be the best in school. And then I got to the top, got to the top university, and then like it just got boring for some reason. And then I started looking for ways to make money as well, and I did the odd jobs, and then now I'm here. But yeah, a lot of similarities there. But
it's sorry to interject. It's interesting how competition, even though it was a different kind of competition, was what sort of pulled both of us in the direction where we've gone in now. And I think one thing that I've realized is the competition was originally about me versus them, whereas now it's become me versus me, because I know what I value, I know what I'm building towards, and I know how I'm going to do that. And that only comes through development of my own skills rather than, I still love competing against people in sport for sure.
Yeah.
But if I do it in business, it's not healthy. It just
Right.
ends up wrecking my mindset.
Right. Wow, that is a great insight. So, one thing I did want to ask, like, did you think that anything from your sports kind of translated to the business, how you approach business right now?
Definitely. I think a lot. I think of it as the athlete's mindset. To me, business, you need a good team. Or if you're going to be in business by yourself, you need a good support system. People who they understand how you're working, what you're thinking about, when you're stressed, what you need to do to sort of be at your optimal. So, for example, I'm doing 12 months of no drinking, and the people that I've got in my life aren't people who are like, oh, what are you doing that for? They're fully supportive of it. They'll get you non-alcoholic drinks or whatever, so you can still enjoy life, but keep you on track with your goals. So I think one of the most important parts is that teamwork, or having that support crew there. The other thing is the resilient mindset. You have the end goal, which to me was like winning a grand final. That's what I think every athlete's goal is to try and achieve. But there's plenty of little milestones that have to be achieved along the way. So what I realized was the daily training, allowed you to perform well on the weekend. If you didn't perform well on the weekend, you were then playing catch up. So every training session counted. That's where the consistency piece comes in. The games are like the opportunity for you to test your skill set. How well are we doing? How well are we working as a team? What feedback do I need to take to implement into training next week to achieve a better outcome? The other side of that, and obviously to win, you then go into games where the first 18 rounds, it's just win or loss. That's it. You then move into the final series, which is like, it's death. Like you get knocked out here. So when we talk about competition during the season, as long as you're winning more than you're losing and you're staying in the right half of the draw to make the finals, you're learning, right? That's the feedback time, the developing the cohesiveness in your business, essentially systemizing things if we want to translate it to business. But when you go to finals, it's knockout. Like the competition does matter.
Yeah.
It's like everything you've built goes to this moment. Okay, so for us in business, we might say that might be getting on a call for maybe a six-figure coaching contract, as opposed to the ones that aren't six-figure in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Like it could, or you're about to go bankrupt, and it's like, I really need this sale, or else I'm going back to a job, right? That's where these, I guess, the relations come. So that taught me about that. And then I guess just another point, so I don't keep rambling on, but communication. You need to know a lot about your strengths and weaknesses, and then you need to be able to confidently and honestly be able to relay that to the team and the people around you, so that people can fill the gaps or you can help support, because there's no, I guess in team, it's like you don't have 10% responsibility, they have 10% responsibility. It just is like a pendulum.
Yeah.
And depending on what's happening, that's sort of where you need to step up or step back and really work in unison there.
Yeah. I like what you said there. It's like the 10%, not 10%. It's more like you're all 100%. Like it's not really, I only give us this much, and then you give this much. It's more like you have to overshoot sometimes, and
strategy.
But what I did like what you mentioned, there's like competition about learning where it's somewhat like experimentation. And I think that's a key thing in sports as well. Like, you know, how during the regular season, right, you kind of like look at what works, what defensive schemes work, what plays work. So, and then you actually don't always do the same play over and over again, because then like the competition would read it, and like you're right, like you won't be able to do it anymore. But during the finals part, that's when you can like, okay, this has been working for us. That's what we're gonna do this time.
Yeah, you've got the data to support that across 9 different teams. This was the move that worked the best. This defensive strategy worked. And then you've also got to take into account weather, right? So for in business, you're looking at the economy, you're looking at rules and regulations, government, you know, stuff that once again is out of your control, but you have to learn to play. Like that's there. And a lot of people would go, oh, it's raining and we can't play rugby today.
Yeah.
No one would ever say that, but they would say we can't play. And it's like business where people go, the economy's, you know, we're heading towards a recession. People aren't buying. It's like, that's complete bullshit.
Yeah, it's actually the complete opposite, right? Like,
Correct.
isn't it supposedly when the economy's down, that's the best time to like do something? Because when things go up, you'll like ride the wave towards it.
Correct. If once again, it's all strategy and knowing. From my experience, everyone's different, but understanding your risk tolerance, what you've got to potentially lose, because nothing's guaranteed. But I also believe, and you see a lot of companies that have grown through recessions that have doubled down on their marketing, because when people are tightening up the belts, they're spending more and you get market share. And so it's always strategy, thinking about, or not approaching everything from the same lens you've always viewed it in, and look at what's happening and potential ways to navigate it differently.
It's very interesting. So now then, like, how did you the start? So did you already go to the man? I love the name, by the way, of the business. The man that can project. Do you like? It's like the man that can project and the man that can project. Like, whoa, that is smart. That's good.
Play on words.
Yeah. So was it already that, or like how was the early stages?
Yeah. The progression was from personal training. What I realized was I was working with people who ran business, all walks of life, and I naturally gravitated to working with blokes because I could really, I guess, understand what it's like performing at a high level from a hormonal standpoint, and the lifestyles that we live. So I really related. So I sort of I guess pigeonholed myself to working with men only. And then what I believe I have a really good skill set of listening, because I've always been, I guess one of my weaknesses back in the day was I couldn't communicate well. So I was a very good listener, but I really struggled to use my voice. I would mumble. Wasn't confident in talking about my opinions, etc. And so that made me a great listener. And because of that, I ended up essentially, I felt like I was a therapist half the time. And I started seeing like all these synchronicities between people from all walks of life. And I was like, interesting. And that's when I started documenting. And I was on my own, I guess, journey as well to figure out what my life was going to look like. Because once again, as I mentioned, personal training to me was a means to an end, not a career at this point.
Right.
Okay, so it wasn't until I learnt more that I was like, this is actually something that I love to do, and you can get paid to do it. Therefore, that is a career. It doesn't have to have the university title behind it to be validated. And I started documenting a lot on Instagram. So I was like, this is what I've learnt today. This is why. And I just was really vocal and excited about the things that I was learning or talking to clients about. And I was sharing that. And eventually I had more and more people starting to reach out on social media. They're like, what would you do in this situation? Or could you help me with that? And I got to this point where, once again, I still had the goal. I wanted to be able to travel and be flexible with work. I wanted to be able to earn what I was worth. And I wanted to be able to be doing it in a way. And this is what I'd realized, doing it in a way that was something that I loved. And I was loving the fitness coaching, but I was also loving being able to help people with other things in their life, like piece things together and just build a better life. And I remember the exact moment. It was around 10 years ago, and we were in Austria. And I was walking to the pub to get a chicken parmigiana and a pint of beer. And a bloke asked me a question on Instagram. And I can't remember the specific question, but I remember thinking, okay, I'm going to start a men's group. And the reason being is I'm getting a lot of the same questions. Why don't we all just get together? One of the biggest things that I wish I had when I was younger was a network of men who were successful in various different things. So as I mentioned, I'd always grown up idolizing athletes. My dad was a business owner, but at that point in time, our relationship wasn't super tight. He was always working, and I didn't have access to people from other walks of life. So I wanted to bring them together and to be able to understand what it took to be successful in their field. So what it looked like to be a great dad, what it looked like to be a great husband, what it looked like to be fit and healthy in your 50s, what it looked like to run your own business. But I also wanted them to be able to share what it really took, like the sacrifices, the fights with your maybe your spouse, the missing sports carnivals, all of those sorts of things. And I wanted to start to really understand it so I could see if there was a way where you didn't have to make those sacrifices to achieve success. And it was crazy, man. Like with him, it was about 4 months. We were having these I would call them sold out because of time, but we'd have 30 men in a room.
Wow.
From doctors, lawyers to 18-year-olds who didn't know what they wanted to do with their life. And then to myself, who was trying to lead these things, and I had no idea what was going on. But it was just the idea that I was like, this is what I think I needed. So let's see if that's the thing. And it became incredible. You had all of these men walking away from these events going, man, I feel like I've just taken a weight vest off, like stuff that I've never spoken about or I wanted to be able to, discuss, I now got to do, and now I can go home feeling relaxed. And the cool thing about that was that there was no gurus. Everyone was an expert in something that others weren't, and we could provide perspective and insight, but we were just there to listen, and it gave people meaning. After a while, there came a bottleneck because the same people kept coming back. And I was like, this is awesome for retention, like really cool business model here. However, the problem was they were coming back with the same problems every month and they weren't doing anything. And it was taking a toll on me. I was like, man, come on, like just do something. You can't keep coming back with that same issue. And it got really taxing on myself. Like it was impacting my mood and I was getting frustrated. So I had a little bit of a whinge for a moment. And then I decided, I was like, okay, well, what do these guys need? Well, what did I need? And it's like, I needed a solution to my problem. So what does that then look like? And when you're looking at a range of things from finances to relationships to health to life satisfaction, there's no one size fit all solution, but there is frameworks. And that's when I decided I did some coaching accreditation and I started working with people one-on-one to help them do that. And I hit another, roadblock where my schedule was so full. I was earning good money, but I had no time. And I didn't want that. That was once again going away from what I originally wanted, which was the freedom and flexibility to earn a lot and travel a lot. It wasn't scalable. And so from that moment, I was like, what do we do now? And then I got into workshops. I started creating workshops. So instead of doing 30 one-on-one clients, I could do one workshop with 30 people. And that was awesome. And then COVID happened. And COVID was like, okay, well, I'm meant to have I just finished one workshop and I was meant to have a workshop 3 months later. And I was like, okay, well, let's do this on Zoom. And then I did 3 sold out workshops online. And so I was earning the same amount of money, less overheads. And I was literally doing it from
and you
my
were
office.
doing it everywhere anywhere you wanted.
Literally. Obviously COVID, so I was sitting at home, but I could have done it anywhere, which was amazing. And that for me was that first time where I was like, interesting. Online seems to be able to deliver the same results. Don't get me wrong. I love face-to-face stuff. I'm a massive advocate. I've got a workshop next weekend back in Australia that I'm flying for. Still love that. But there's a lot of value in online. And I started then thinking, like my mum's side of the family is from the bush, like the country. And some of the highest suicide rates are for country blokes. Meaning, and when you think about that, they don't have access to a lot of resources that cities or metropolitan areas have. Okay, they don't necessarily have their mates around them all the time. They aren't having conversations because they're tough country people. And I was like, this is awesome. There's a new market that I can tap into here where I can relate to that lifestyle. We love sport. We connect over that. But also, if I can bring them together in a way that they wanting to have these workshop experiences or just come and connect with people all around the world, but from the comfort of their farm, then we
Yeah.
can start having an impact there. And that's what we did. And over the last couple of years, it's grown. My main product is the Strong Men of Value Academy. So we're focused on helping men become the best version of themselves. And that's looking at the areas of health, wealth, relationship, and happiness. And one of the greatest parts of leverage that I have in that business, apart from being able to do it everywhere, is the network effect. So we've got people who are successful from all around the world who they also coach and add value because that's their expertise. It's not all on me because I'm an expert in very little, really.
Yeah.
So being able to watch and learn from them as well. We've got this community that supports one another, and then we do workshops a couple of times a year where people can fly in and get the face-to-face experience. But it really eliminates a lot of excuses for people around time, location, affordability to be able to do that. And from a business standpoint, one, it's provided freedom, it's provided scalability, and it can pivot as I continue to grow and evolve as well, which is what it's doing.
Yeah. Wow, man. That is a great story. One thing that I want to talk about, or I want to touch on here, is like what you just mentioned about you're not an expert, but like what's great, I think, about you as a person is that what you mentioned, you kind of just like take a step back and just accidentally, because you were kind of shy, you were mumbling and stuff like that, you became a therapist. But because of that, you kind of give off that aura of expertise because you're like, let them like speak, and you were just there, like on the backgrounds.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
it definitely worked in my favor because knowing what I know now about communication, you have to listen to really understand what's going on. And if you interject too early, or if you try to provide a solution too early, you miss the main problem. Because quite
Yeah.
often, most people, when they're confiding in you or when they're coming to you, and you would experience this as well, Nathaniel, with your consulting and coaching, that when people are coming to you, they haven't necessarily thought about what
The
their actual
problem.
problem is. They have
Yeah.
an idea, but when they start talking, it's really them thinking out loud.
Yeah.
And people need time to think out loud because they go, they'll start saying, oh, this is my problem, yada, yada, yada. And then they go, actually, wait, I think this is the problem. And all I do is like take mental notes or physical notes. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
so here's the list of potential problems that you listed off. Which do you think is the biggest, right?
Yeah.
The one that's causing the most grief in your life. And then I guess you can go from that place where the flip side of that, had I spoken too soon, I probably would have missed out on that. And I don't think I had the communication skills at the time to ask better questions to get to the real. I would take people on face value. That's their problem. Awesome. That's their problem. When we know that's not the case 90% of the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, and I think like most people, and this is what I noticed in the consulting as well, like they kind of know what to do already. Like they just need that someone who will like talk to them, or like who will listen to them while they're, what you mentioned, articulate their words, and then they realize that actually my problem doesn't make sense. It's like actually a simple there's actually a simple solution already.
Yeah.
Have you had one of those moments?
Definitely. I've had plenty of those moments. A lot of the time, especially, so I work with men now predominantly aged between 30 and 50 who have a successful career, generally have a family, but they're just lacking time. They've sacrificed their health and their work is meaningless. So as a result of that, the biggest thing that's missing is they've built this professional vision, meaning they know what they want. They want the money, they want the status, they want the recognition. I think a lot of men fall into that trap, and I would say people in general fall into that trap now. And the challenge with that is when you build a professional vision without first having a personal vision, quite often they don't match. Right? You can have all the money in the world and a status, but if your health is not where it needs to be, or if you don't have family to share it with or friends to share it with, like what's the point? Or if you don't even have hobbies, like what are you going to, what's on your bucket list for Christ's sake? Like what are you going to do? And so when I speak to a lot of people, like if you really boil it down, to the men that I work with, is they just haven't given themselves permission to realign with what they want, like what they really want. For a long time, they've followed the traditional path, which I think you and I go against the grain of, and which is fine. Look, I've been guilty of that, and no, but when you start questioning things, that's when you need to start looking for the answers. So when people go on their roundabout thing of, this is the issue, and it's like, okay, well, at the moment, it's just like you don't know what you want. Let's start there, and then we can start, filling in the pieces from there.
For sure, for sure. A lot of people kind of like because business owners have that tendency to focus on things and to like make it work, and because of that ultra focus, that's the focus that makes them successful. But because of that focus, they also get blinded by everything else they don't see, and like that's the importance of a coach, I think.
Definitely, that hyper focus. It's such a awesome thing. But once again, tying it back into like that personal vision, if the main focus of your life isn't going to that personal vision, like that bigger, that long-term thinking, what do you want your life to look like in X amount of time? You're always going to have the blinders on, and you're going to miss out on the other important things. And then you're going to find yourself having established a life that doesn't have a lot of, it's very scarce or depleted in other areas, and that's not fulfilling. Right? Midlife crises are a big example of that, right? Or male suicide, once again, and suicide in general for people over 30 to 50 is like huge because of that. And so if we can go, okay, these are the 4 areas, like health, what does that look like? In 3 to 5 years' time, what would you love to be doing? A personal example is I want to be just as fit in 3 to 5 years' time as I am right now. I still want to be competing in adventure sports like I am now. Like, so I know what that then looks like, or what goals I need to set and how I allocate my time. So when I'm focused, I trained just before I got on this call. So I know what I need to do in that allotment of time. And I put my blinders on and I get that done. I then go to work. I know what I'm working towards right now. So when I've got my work time zone, I'm all in on that, and I'm doing my maximum time because I know that's going to move me to where I want to be in 3 to 5 years' time, which is more scalability in my business. And cut me off if I'm rambling, but even from
go for it, man.
a business standpoint. So I went from Lachlan Stuart coaching, a personal brand, to creating the Man That Can project because I had this idea that I needed to have a company that I could potentially sell. Because when I was initially starting in business, I didn't have any investments. I didn't have much cash flow. And I wanted to have something that I could make money off once again. And I also think I was scared of being the face, even though I've ended up being the face. And what I've now realized after a failed business partnership and having multiple employees is that I am better suited for how I operate as a business owner and the wants and desires that I have to be a personal brand. So I'm going through the process of rebranding and dissolving the Man That Can project. I'm still going to keep all my program names exactly what they are, but it's just going to be Lachlan Stuart again.
Right. So it's going to be just personal brand.
Back to personal brand, yes. And once again, so going into, because in the big picture, that suits where I want to be. I don't want to have to carry this company on my shoulders when I know full well I'm never going to set it up to sell it. Like, that's not happening. So why would I do that? That's a waste of time. You then got your other bucket, right, which is the happiness bucket. For me, that's having a bucket list. Like, I've got a list on my phone of things that I'm working towards that make me happy. So I've got like my daily escapades, right, are things that they're not a big deal, right? So it could literally be just going to see a new movie or doing a date night. They're like things that are like on my bucket list, but they enrich my life. Right? Doesn't take a lot of time or money. Then I've got like, let me get my list up. Things that are a big deal, okay, but they're not like going to once again cost me monumental planning or money. So it could be like going to see a football game or a Luke Combs concert or something like that. That is something that I've always wanted to do, haven't experienced, but I wanted to do. And then there's like the Grandier, bucket, which would be like seeing a FIFA World Cup final or going to Iceland to see the Northern Lights, something that you have to get lucky to see. Like, it's really hard to get a ticket to that, but that would be awesome. And so I'm always working towards that. And I learned that idea from a guy called Jesse Itzler, and he talks about building your life's resume. And so at the end of every year, if you don't have a year that you're proud of, and once again, we're talking business, that's important. We're talking your relationships with friends, family, colleagues. We're talking your health, like having done some cool stuff. Like I've done some cool physical stuff this year. And then we're talking your bucket list. What have you ticked off? Like what are you going to be excited to read at the end of the year? And then obviously, which I briefly touched on, I did the relationships. Anyway, that last bucket. So that's how I sort of allocate my life so that I'm building towards my life's vision. Because if you don't give time to them daily, you're going to miss out. And if you put it on paper and you go, I can't get that done, you've just highlighted a problem. It doesn't mean you give up. You just go, okay, I've got way too much. Yeah. Why?
Right.
I've got way too much work stuff here. I need to either get rid of some stuff, which is what I've done. And I also need to learn to be more efficient. So I need to build better systems and processes to be able to do that rather than just giving up on it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great, man. I love that idea, and I will like adapt that, bro. Like that's a great system. One thing though that popped in my head, just playing devil's advocate. You know how you have these people like talking about, you know how when you tell someone to like do something and they'd be like, oh, just go with the flow of life. You know, there's like the hipster type of vibes. And I did have that idea of like a life being too over optimized, where everything needs to be systemized. Have you ever had those moments where you feel like life has become too systemized for you? And if you did, how did you cope with it? Or like, how would you approach those people who talk about, over optimization?
Yeah, awesome. Great question. And I have 100% over optimized my life. Like if you saw before, moving to America was the best thing I ever did. And I'll explain why in a second. Prior to that, every minute in my day
was accounted for.
Yeah, literally was accounted for. And so I would be up at 4:50. I'd be doing my reading, having my morning routine. Then I would be with clients until about 11 o'clock. Then I'd be training. Then I'd be doing sales calls. Then I'd be doing online coaching. Then I'd be learning. Then I'd be in bed and rinse and repeat. And I was like, I'm killing it, right? And when I moved over here, my wife's a musician. Her brother, so they're in a big band. Her brother-in-law, her brother is, they're all musicians, and their way of living is more go with the flow than mine is. And so I'm staring myself in the mirror here being like, this is not a way to live. Like, you're not going to be successful unless you optimize your time.
Yeah.
And what I've found is like I had, I think I was here for 4 months before my first trip back to Australia, and I was catching up with clients and running a workshop. And as soon as I went back to Australia, I noticed how much that lifestyle was toxic. Like, and when I say toxic, I was stressed. I went straight back to my 5 a.m. get up, on calls all day. And I noticed that I wasn't actually as productive, and my profitability for time per hour was down. And that was the best learning experience I ever had. And so now when I talk about those buckets, the buckets don't need to be regimented, right? Like some days I do a date night, roughly every fortnight. I still exercise every day. Like that's important to me. I still work, but that varies of intensity. We have, like I'll have a sprint if I'm going to launch something, or if, once again, going back for this workshop to sell it out, like that'll be intense. But once the workshop's done, I can ease off. Like I'll spend more time traveling. We got a 5 week, 5 weeks of travel when I get back in the country, back into America. And so it sort of is like an energy balance sort of thing. And with that, that was the biggest thing I learned about rigidity and being too structured. However, so if I were to, I guess, summarize how I now live my life or what I focus on, is still giving time to those areas every day, or aiming to give time to those areas every day. And I sprint when I need to, and I chill out when I need to. Like there's no pressure on this has to be done. The only time taking it back to sport is like when it has to be done. The deadline is like if a workshop is literally 2 weeks away and it's not sold out, I've got to work my ass off. But if it's 12 weeks away, I don't have to do it today. Sort of thing. That makes sense.
Yeah. I remember a concept because I like sports as well. So yeah, and I don't know, I forgot his name, but do you know Georges St. Pierre, like the
Yeah.
UFC?
UFC
His
fighter.
trainer. Yeah, I forgot the name of his trainer, but there was one podcast with him and Joe Rogan, and he talked about how they talk about how Russian wrestlers. So Russian wrestlers are apparently like the best in the world, and they like majority of their training throughout the year is just play, like just wrestle. They're just like going there, always training, but like it's you see them and it looks like they're just playing. But as the Olympics come closer, as the competition it becomes like faster and faster, and it becomes more intense, and then to the point that before the like 2 weeks before the competition, it's like hyper speed, like imitating the competition itself. And it makes sense because as a fighter, imagine like if you did like boxing 12 rounds every day, killing it, like trying to knock each other out. You're not going to last.
Longevity is not there.
Yeah. So yeah, continue.
No, you go. I was just
Okay. I was just like, because imagine someone just trying to like sprint all the time, as you mentioned as well, like trying to sprint. You're going to get injuries. You're gonna break a leg. You're gonna like everything's gonna fall apart.
You're going to be tired, man. Straight up. Like anyone listening, literally go outside now and go for a sprint. Either you'll be done in 10 seconds or you'll pull a hamstring. One of two things will probably happen. Unless you're a conditioned athlete, but then still you'll be done in about 20 seconds.
Yeah, you still need to like do that like rest. And yeah, I like that idea that you put out there. When there's a bit like a launch that's happening, that's when you like really gotta go hard. But most of the time it's better to like step away from it and like try to see it as play. Also goes back to what you mentioned, like a season where when you're in the regular season you just play and it's okay to lose. But as the finals, it's like it has to be systemized.
Dude, I love that point of play, because now that you say that, I'm like, that's one of the other things that I've observed from my brother-in-law and my wife is like they spend a lot of time playing and messing about, and I'm like, come on, like you got to be serious, But then when they're on, they're like creating works of, their album just went #1, like they're killing it, and so that's probably one of the biggest challenges I face, if I'm being completely honest, because I grew up with that idea of, in order to be successful, you have to work hard. And my idea of working hard is that hustle. And I'm trying to disassociate from it. I'm moving away from it. Yeah. But there's still subconsciously a part of me that's like, if I'm not working hard or trying to close deals or improve something, then my life's going to mean nothing. When it's like when you play or when you have fun, you enjoy the process more, you view things differently, you probably learn more because you're in more of a flow state than this has to be done state. So there's plenty of benefit. I'm going to look into that a lot more. Actually going to make note.
Yeah, that's a great one to look at. But one thing that you did mention there about like the anxiety you get, because that's what I feel like when I'm not doing anything. Like I feel anxious, relaxing. I don't know. I feel like that feeling, considering that like after this conversation where this is going, it's like when you're not doing anything with your business, it's like, oh my god, like I'm losing money.
Literally.
So yeah, how do you deal with those right now? Like now that you're kind of like taking a step back more.
I sort of zoom out. I think to be able to enjoy the seasons a little bit more. It's like if I'm always looking in at the thing that I feel I should be doing, I'm not looking at the big picture. And once again, this is so new to me, literally since I've moved over here, that I've been able to zoom back and be like, I've actually achieved, like 10 years ago, what I have right now is exactly what I wanted. Literally the money, the lifestyle, the everything. And if I'm zoomed in, it's still not enough. Like I need to earn more. I need to achieve more. I need to have people know who I am. And then I zoom out. I'm like, why don't you go for a hike? Or why don't you go for a kayak down the river? Or why don't you learn the guitar, like all these other things that I'm curious about that I want to do that I'm now able to do that I just got to dedicate time to. So when I look at my day, like, and one of the reasons how we connected on Twitter
Yeah.
was I've been looking to, I guess, improve areas of my life. Like I've always worked big days. And when you work big days on your business, you sacrifice a lot of other things. And I'm sick of sacrificing things. So I either continue doing that and just become a bitter old man, or I look for solutions. And one of the solutions I came across was like meeting people like yourself and other people who are doing this whole solopreneur thing. But it's just like
Yeah.
you're deciding how many hours you want to work. And I haven't, I guess, settled on how many hours I want to work, because I do enjoy what I do, but I also
Yeah.
want to make time to do the other things that are important to me. So for me, fitness is play. Like if I think, I love training. People don't get, I ran a marathon on a cruise ship.
Oh, no, I saw that. That was crazy.
And people are like, that's like, it's shouldn't you be having a holiday? I'm like, that is a holiday for me. I enjoyed every aspect of that. And it wasn't a challenge. Like I know I can run a marathon. I've run multiple marathons, but it was like the experience of doing it on a boat. That was cool.
Yeah.
And then, learning guitar or exploring, like those are the things that I now make sure that I'm putting into my day. And same with marriage. I've been married for 3 years. I've been with my wife for 11, and keeping the relationship fun. We did a ghost tour the other night. Like we're just trying to find fun things to do. So I think because of the lifestyle that we are living in now, where, we moved to America for my wife's career. So because we're here, I'm more present I want to be present supporting her while still growing my business, which means I have to do it in minimal time.
Yeah.
And I'm still exploring what that looks like. I don't have the answer to that. Obviously, I'm figuring it out as I go, but it made me realize that I have to, go back to the personal brand and not have the Man That Can project. It's made me realize a lot of things that I haven't yet implemented, but I feel I will be implementing over the coming sort of 6 to 12 months.
Gotcha. I like that. Well, I did like the video of you running. That would be cool. Like I like fitness as well. That would be cool. I don't know why people don't find that cool. It's like, imagine running in a ship, like on water, right? It was sick.
Literally, the views, like the sunrise views. You've got this panoramic view in the middle of nowhere. All you can see is ocean for as far as the eye can see. It's just like, wow, this is crazy. I love that experience.
Yeah, hopefully I can do that soon as well. But okay, so moving into that, now that you're going to be like a more of a personal brand, is there anything that's going to change in your business, or are you going to keep like everything, your offerings? Like what's going to happen now moving forward?
For the moment, everything's going to stay the same, just while I
Okay.
keep the association of the brand, like try and do that whole transitional piece. What I feel will change eventually, I'll keep my Strong Men of Value Academy as Academy, and that's my essential core product, but I want to launch more online courses. I've had one, but it's been like a seasonal course. It comes out once a year. So I want to have one that I have that's just available for people, and it's almost like
a flagship course.
Yeah. That people need to do before they're able to apply for the Academy, because the Academy is application. So I think from that, and then off the back of that, so one thing that I'm testing, and I'm not, like, I have an idea of how it's working, and maybe you can give me feedback on this. So one thing that I've done, once again, and I thought it was never possible to make a living out of, but I've done, since sport, I've done a lot of big, like world first fitness challenges. So I was the first person to row 30 marathons in 30 days. I've done a number of 12-hour fitness challenges and heaps of stuff like that. And the last one that I did was the rowing, and I got a lot of media attention, but I still didn't monetize it. And so February, I'm doing a world first, which is 58 marathons in 58 days across 2 countries. So it's called the 58 to 58. And the challenge of that is like traveling. So I'm starting in Alaska, doing all the states of America, down to Hawaii across to Australia, then all of that. And my idea behind that is from a personal brand standpoint, and I want to keep running my business at the same time and keeping my marriage going. So I want to show people, I want to prove to people that you can still do cool stuff. And especially as a bloke who's, I'm 33, so I'll be 34 next year. I want to prove to people it doesn't matter what your age is, you can still do these fun, cool things. And if you set your life up correct, like in a way that works for you, you can do all of these things. You can have the incredible marriage, you can run a business, you can see the world in a different way, which I will be doing. And I want to be able to then use that as like a keynote presentation and write a book off the back of that. So that's what I've got a couple of sponsors now. That's well underway to be announced in the next sort of 4 to 6 weeks. And that'll be a new thing that'll tie into the personal brand side of things. And it's something that I've never done because I didn't think you could monetize it. But now I've seen a few people doing it. I'm like, awesome, let's give that a crack. And it's something I genuinely, once again, it's play for me to get to develop these things and see the world in the way that I want to see it is cool. Like I'm excited by that.
Yo, dude, you're like living the life, bro. I'm so glad that I got connected with you because I feel like you're gonna be like ultra famous or something, bro. You're like, you know David Goggins because he reminded, dude, like that's what he did. He did the 4 or 5 weeks or something, like 100-mile races every weekend.
Yeah,
I'm like, bro, 100-mile races every week. That is insane.
Dude, and that's the thing. There's a lot of these incredible people that people don't know about.
Yeah.
And, a friend of mine, James Lawrence, who I had him on my podcast, he's called the Iron Cowboy. So in 2016, he did 50 Ironman. So for those who aren't familiar with what Ironman is, it's a 3.7 kilometer swim. So I think maybe like a 1.8 mile, a 180 kilometer ride, and a finishing with a marathon 42.2 kilometer run every day for 50 days across every state
every
of
day?
America. Yeah, every day.
Jesus Christ.
Every state of America. And he took his family, so his young children. And so learning from him, he's like, 2 years ago during COVID, he did 101 in 101 days, which is crazy. Like that's 14 hours of exercise a day minimum.
I gotta look this guy up. What's his name again?
Iron Cowboy.
Iron Cowboy.
Yeah. And when I was chatting with him, I'm like, which was harder, the 101 in 101 days or the 50 in 50 days across 50 states? And he said the travel, like, because you can't get into routine, there's no comfort. And that's why I was like, okay, well, I'm doing it traveling to see what's more challenging.
Wow. That is sick, man. Yeah, I'm so excited to see that.
Watch his documentary. You can watch it on like YouTube and all that. Like
I saw it's like 50 something. 50. Yeah, the story of the 50. Bro, this is so sick. I've never heard of this. I'm so glad that I got you on my podcast because like now this is like fame for me. Like I'm gonna be like once Lachlan is all over the area, I'll be like, I got him on my podcast, dog.
I'll be saying the same about you. You're blowing up on Twitter. It's good to see.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're both succeeding, but dude, what you're gonna do is like so cool. And what's great is that you can actually do it because I feel like you've already built like a very good foundation with your business. So even if it kind of like the risk is, I think the risk isn't that much. It's more like really just pushing yourself farther and farther up now. Is that true? Or?
Yeah, definitely. I think the order of events for me was like the most important thing for me 10 years ago was money because I didn't have any.
Yeah.
I was healthy, but I had a drinking and I loved my partying as most people do. And I was also a liar and a cheater. So I had a lot of stuff to work on personally. But by deciding that I wanted to earn $1 million, pulled me and made me a better person. I realized I had to
Mm.
learn to communicate well. I had to learn to sell myself, to market, to network, to do all of these things that ultimately have made me a better person. And then as I've earned more money, I've been afforded, I guess, freedom to me, which is flexibility of time and opportunity. And because that I knew what I wanted it all to look like, I'm now in this position. So yeah, to your point, and it's not something that I've actually thought about until you just brought that up, but I'm not even worried about money over that 2 month period because
Yeah.
my business still works.
Yeah.
And that's what I really want people to, and one of the things, that I'm learning on, connecting with people like yourself and a lot of other incredible people is that I should have been talking about how I've made my money a lot earlier. I never wanted to be a coach to coaches or to people wanting to make money because I was like, I just want to help people stop taking their lives. Like that was the ultimate goal in the beginning and connect. But what
Yeah.
I've realized is finances was the most important thing that changed my life to give me the
Yeah.
opportunity to dive into the other areas. And the best vehicle that I've found to do that is online, like technology, because the
Yeah.
the cost of investment is so low in regards to finances. You just need to become more valuable, learn specific skills, and then you can start doing that. Whatever your wheelhouse is, whether it's for me, it's coaching and fitness. For
Yeah.
for yourself, it's in ghostwriting and consulting. For others, it might be engineering or whatever it is. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like just develop those skills, and then you're well on the way to having a little bit more financial freedom.
Yeah, it's quite insane. Like the internet, dude. I managed to monetize in like under 3 months, and
So good,
that's
dude. Well
that's
done.
and that's what I want to like to do because I'm from the Philippines, right? And we are like a third world country, and well, to be fair, right now, like not a lot of people are good. I'm very blessed to be good in English, right? That's why I can communicate to a lot of people on Twitter. But eventually, my plan is to like make English education free in the Philippines, like create
That's
just a
awesome.
school, yeah, just to like have
So
people
cool,
speak
man.
it, and then like at that point, like have computers there, and then they just join X, and then they make money, and then it's like because I saw how valuable and how not easy but simple it is to like make money online, just forming connections and like working hard, iterating, getting better. So yeah, that's the plan. So
That's such an awesome goal. Like seriously, so cool. What was it like for you when you earned the first dollar online? What went through your
yo,
mind?
dude. Okay. So my first dollar was like the biggest deal that I had. It was like 12.5K. So it was really just a shocker. It was supposed to be a shock, right? But so the story is that I just used to like write on Twitter just for fun. So I started writing first. Actually, it was in Quora. So I was writing on Quora, like answering questions, and then I was still in university. I was like working a job, like a night shift job. And what I would do is just like go to university and then go night shift. And before I would go to sleep, like 4 a.m. At 4 a.m., I would answer one question on Quora before I go to bed. Then I would go to bed. And I just did that like for 1.5 months. And then mid February, I posted all of my content from Quora to Twitter because I realized you could do that. Posted it on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and on Medium. And then suddenly I blew up like 700 followers in 1 month. This is something like
Wow.
that. Yeah. And so I was like, whoa, there's potential in here. And then I went all in, invested on a course, like a ghostwriting course, like spent money I didn't even have. Like I had like, I think $3,000 at that time. And I bought like I invested on 7,000 course, $7,000
Nice.
course. It was a plan, but they promised you, they told you like you would close a 10, like you would earn 10K in 8 weeks. That was their promise. So I was like, if I'm going to earn 10K in 8 weeks, then I have enough money to like pay for the first months, right? You know? So I invested on it. I took a leave from university, and for 45 days I just grinded out, like just DM people, like outreach, everything. And when I finally closed that client, I was so zoned in with the work that when I closed it, I didn't even get to celebrate. I was just work again. You know, because I just got into like the robotic mindset, and I had to like experience what you said, where like in Australia, where you had to wake up for 4:50 and then like work and this and that. That was my life for at least until I finished my deliverables for that client. When I finished that, I got so burned out that I had to like just take some time off because it was just, man, like health was kind of suffering as well. You know, like I would wake up and I would just think work. I wouldn't even have like time to step back. I also do like morning routine, so I can't have a day without like some form of fitness. Sorry if I'm blabbering here now, but I can't I can't have a day where I don't do some form of workout. So even if it's just like a run or like a little bit, but after that I would immediately like work because I was just so honed in. And then until recently, actually, did I just get like a day where it's like blank, and I'm like, it made me so happy to see my calendar like one day was blank. Like nothing was in there.
It's the best,
So
man.
yeah. Yeah, it's like you can just do whatever you want. So yeah, I was sick.
Freedom. Well done, dude. So cool.
Appreciate you. But yeah, so enough about me. One thing I do want to talk about, um, before like we're nearing like the and I think, because I do find your mission valuable with men, because that's also what I want to do in the future as well. So one of my stories is that I actually grew up without a father, and my mother was kind of ashamed of an African child. My identity was changed, actually. Like some people, like they even tried to make me look like a, what's this? Like I was adopted. So I really had a lot of issues growing up, and I think that a lot. It's not only me. Like I think majority of the men across the globe are struggling with this identity crisis, where there's not a lot of masculine figures, at least in my perspective, out there who kind of show you what it means to be a man. So since that is kind of like your branding, which will now change, but the man that can project, the man that can project, what would your definition of a man is? And like, at least even for me, what would your advice be to young man?
To clarify as well, the mission will still be the same regardless of
Yeah.
the CAM project or Lachlan. I'll just stand behind what I'm saying rather than being able to, I guess, hide behind a business. To me, what a strong man needs in society is someone who is a leader and someone who is not afraid to stand up for what they believe in, but also has the ability to show compassion and seek to understand other people. I feel at the moment, people are at war with each other, which isn't going to, no one's ever changed my opinion by telling me what I believe is wrong, ever.
Yeah.
So if we can have strong men who are capable of what I believe we're here for, is protecting and providing, but also be able to emotionally connect and nurture with society, like that's my idea of what it's working for. Because if you're the most physically strong and hard-headed bloke, you'll probably end up taking your life because you can't emotionally connect, right? You'll feel lonely
Yeah.
at some point. So I think there needs to be a good balance between that, and that is achieved by training your mind, training your body, and building your emotional intelligence.
Awesome, man.
My advice to young men. So the charity that we're raising funds for in the 58 to 58 is called Top Blokes Foundation, which is primarily aimed at working with young men. For the last 7 years, I've always raised funds for Movember and generally all ages. But the reason why that's pivoted to young men is young men are very easily influenced at the
Yeah.
moment, and a lot of the influence and beliefs that they're adopting are adopting out of a facade or an idea of what they think success should look like or what the idea of a man should look like without first exploring that for themselves.
Yeah.
So I've spent at least 10 years trying to work out what a man is and what kind of man I want to be, and now I know. So now my goal is to live that. And I feel as a young man, we need to explore that. That's why they had rites of passages in the
Yeah.
past. So my advice to young men is consume information from all angles,
Mm.
implement things, try new things, and you'll find out very quickly who you are, what you value, and who you want to become.
Yeah, yeah. That's beautiful, man. And I do think that's one of the important things right now is like to think independently, to like think for yourself in a way. Because a lot of people, like even in X, I think you've noticed this, everyone just says the same stuff. They
Does my
literally
head
just
in.
copy paste. They just copy paste what people say. And yeah.
I get validated for it. That's what's frustrating. There's like,
Yeah.
there's likes, comments, and you're like, okay, I appreciate that, but, and I could be completely wrong, and I hope I am wrong, but I feel having done business in offline and having
Mm.
made friends offline, I feel like there's never in a moment where I'd be like, hey, I've just hit 300 friends. I would never run down the street and do that. Like that to me is just so foreign. So to see that happening, I'm like, I can understand from a progress standpoint, awesome.
Mm.
But I've
Mm.
never once in the public eye seen people do that. And there's a lot of things online that I still struggle to get my head around. And once again, I'm
Yeah.
open to learning if it's how the new world works for sure. But there's also parts of me where I'm like, that's not human
Yeah.
to do that. So I'm still learning that boat.
Wow, that's a very great perspective. Like the 300. Hey, I have hit this.
It
Like,
doesn't have to
I
be
mean,
300. Yeah, it could be whatever number, but
yeah. I mean, you would say that to your friends. Like DMs maybe. Like you would say, "Hey, bro, I'm so happy. Like I'm finally like for example, you landed. You made you got your first job. Like you tell your friends,
right.
"Yo, I'm so happy," right? But to like outright put it in the front of your door, like in front of your house, it'd be like, I made $300,000 here or whatever. It's like it's kind of weird in real
Yeah,
life.
because if you think about like friendships, to me, if you've got 500 friends or so-called friends, you lack connection with those friends. Like it's not physically possible to have a good relationship with that many
Yeah.
people. I can appreciate that you would have 500 followers or
Mm.
um, fans, whatever it may be. Awesome. Like you're building a brand, you're developing something of worth. But to say that you've done X amount of DMs, like that's like me cold calling all day and saying, I've had 70 connects today. I've made 70 new friends. No, that's not how it works. Could you call them up and invite them to dinner? Like that's how I see is like a relational currency that is a trap
It's
that,
more valuable.
yeah. And once again, I could be completely wrong because I'm new to Twitter,
Yeah.
but some of those things I'm like, when I see people say that, I'm like, I'm probably going to steer clear for a while.
No, yeah. I could like. I'm also kind of new to Twitter, so I don't want to like say, oh, that's weird. But when you frame it the way you did, where it's like if you do that in real life, it is kind of like, hmm, why are you doing that?
Yeah. But there's
So
no right or wrong, whatever works for the individual. But that's why people are unique and different. That's just my thoughts.
for sure, for sure. And so yeah, one thing I do like to ask my um, guests in the end of my podcast is like you could if I could have asked you one question, what would it have been and how would you answer it?
That's a brilliant question. probably building. Why is it important to build around what's important to you?
Okay.
If that's what I'm thinking. That may not be the best way to ask it, but I'll have a crack at answering it.
Okay.
The reason why I think it's important is because life goes quick. I'm still young, like I'm 33, but I notice that life is getting quicker, and I've had people that I went to school with that are no longer here. So the value of time is so important. So for me now is making sure that how I am spending my time is how I want to be spending my time. I'm not trying to please other people or show up at events and functions to make those people feel good. I'm doing what I feel I will get value from or what makes my life better. And that's why, once again, I go back to design that personal vision, find a professional vision that fits into that, and work at that daily. But don't forget to enjoy what's in front of you at the same time, because it goes so bloody quick. So quick.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful. So, Lachlan, where can the audience find you?
So you guys can find me on X or Twitter. Do you reckon it's going to go back to Twitter? I saw Elon post the other day. He's like, should we go back to Twitter?
Oh, did it? I didn't see that.
Yeah,
Wow.
he posted. And like, from what I saw, most people were saying go back to Twitter.
Yeah.
Which would be
yeah,
nice.
a lot of people.
So that's at Lachlan Stuart, Lachlan Stuart. The same for Instagram. And same for YouTube is Lachlan Stuart 91.
Gotcha.
That's where I'm most active.
All right. So that's all. Thanks for hopping in, Lachlan. A lot of fun, a lot of good insight.
Appreciate your time, man. It was a pleasure.